From the high desert southwest and an indiscreet shave den located in the deep recesses of Ouch's basement, broadcasting north from McMurdo Sound to Ice Station Zebra and east and west across all time zones to our members throughout the world, this is Badger and Blade Radio. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be in B&B land, and welcome to our first show of 2017. First off, we'd like to wish everybody a very happy new year, and we trust that you and your families had a fantastic holiday season. We have a lot on deck for the show. First off, we'll have our news and events around BadgerandBlade.com, our ever-popular mail call section, and our first member spotlight interview for 2017 with Mike, better known as Antique Hoosier, here on www.badgerandblade.com, one of our most tenured members. This interview is a real treat as we get some insight to the early days of Badger and Blade. So sit back, relax, and we'll be back right after this.
If you have it, you don't need it. If you need it, you don't have it. If you have it, you need more of it. If you have more of it, you don't need less of it. You need it to get it. And you certainly need it to get more of it. But if you don't already have any of it to begin with, you can't get any of it to get started, which means you really have no idea how to get it in the first place, do you? You can share it, sure. You can even stockpile it if you'd like, but you can't fake it. Wanting it, needing it, wishing for it. The point is, if you've never had any of it, ever, people just seem to know.
We're going to open up our mailbag for 2017, and just a quick reminder to members is that we place a mail call thread in the video library forum about a week in advance of our upcoming episode. So if you have any questions for B&B Radio, anything about BadgerandBlade.com, or if you'd like to give a shout out to a specific member, please go ahead and place that in that thread, and we'll do our best to get that on the air. Please note that it must be within the terms and usage of BadgerandBlade.com. Our first mail call for 2017 comes from Craig, Clyde 72, and he says, well, it's been a little over a year since I started wet shaving, and I would like to thank all the members of Badger and Blade for their help, guidance, and support. I would also like to thank them for encouraging my ADs, brush acquisition disorder, razor acquisition disorder, soap and cream acquisition disorders, and aftershave acquisition disorder. The SWMBO, for those new guys, that is your wife, she who must be obeyed, has now agreed to allow me to purchase 2, yes, I said 2 cabinets to hang on the wall in the master bathroom to accommodate my growing collection. I'm not sure if 2 will be enough, but that's about all I can fit in there. I wonder if I could convince her to convert the guest bathroom into a shave den. I hope everyone has a joyful and prosperous 2017. Well, Craig, thank you so much. And yes, I have been relegated to our second bathroom. And in a way, it's kind of neat because now I have my own little barbershop. So thanks once again for that. Now, from Cumberloy comes a question. Dave, could you find out if Santa and Mrs. Claus are back from the Bahamas yet? I wanted to thank him for the cool stuff he brought me and ask him if he wears a Speedo while down there on vacation. Well, I did put out a telegram to Santa, and they are still down in the Bahamas enjoying the warm weather. However, I did not ask him about the Speedo as it was inappropriate, but as per the last Christmas episode, Mrs. Claus did indicate that he does wear black, so I would assume that if he does wear a Speedo, it's probably very slimming. And now, from the mind of Dangerous Dawn comes, do you know if Mrs. Santa Claus has recovered from consuming a vast amount of eggnog? Well, Dawn, in that same telegram, I did ask her if the tequila nog had worn off, and she did indeed say that she's doing great and fantastic. However, she's moved on to Mai Tais, so we'll have to keep an eye on that to see if Mrs. Claus may have a little bit of a drinking problem. But we'll see. But with the stress of Christmas and everything else, you can certainly see why. And then from George86 Jacob, he'd like to give a big shout out to Dan, aka Doc47, for his incredible generosity, both in general and more specifically in starting the newbie straight razor pass around. And that's it for the mailbag for this week, folks. When we get back, we'll go into news and events, and then following that, we will have our exclusive member spotlight interview with Antique Hoosier. Be back in a sec.
High Karate's second fragrance, new Eastern spice. Just one whiff drives women wild. Its sultry oriental aroma makes men irresistible. That's why there's a special leaflet on self-defense in every pack. High Karate and High Karate Eastern Spice. Be careful how you use it.
Welcome back to the show, everybody, and as always, we'd like to thank you for spending part of your day here with us on Badger and Blade Radio. Now for some news and events around badgerandblade.com, and during this section, you will be seeing some photos of some wonderful gifts that were received by our members during the Christmas holiday. Now, if you recall, that is our Mr. Bingle Reindeer and Sleigh Gift Exchange. Now, you can get involved as well. Usually around mid-November, you'll see a thread open up that will ask you to sign up to help spread the holiday cheer for the Christmas season. So please get involved, as it turns out to be one of our most fun and most giving events of the year. Also, did you know that at any one time we have about 2,000 people that are just dipping their toes in the water of badgerandblade.com? We like to call them lurkers. Now, why do they lurk? Well, they're just checking us out, trying to see whether or not this is a forum that they want to be about. Well, let me tell you. With the 76 to 78,000 members that we have, we'd welcome you with open arms. This is an internet experience unlike any other, and a forum unlike any other, where gentlemanly decorum still prevails. So please, get off the fence. Join us here on badgerandblade.com. It is free, and if you do join, make sure that you go over to the Shave Clinic and Newbie section to introduce yourself, as well as the Hall of Fame. So those of you potential members that are out there, once again, please get off the fence, jump in the pool. The water is just fine. Also, a quick reminder for those bingo players, yes, it's time. The 2017 season of Badger and Blade Bingo is getting ready to start today, Monday the 9th, in the Safety Razor Forum. Now, it will be located in the sub-forum for Razor Blades. Keen Dog and the guys over there will be having a wonderful time playing bingo, so there's still time to get signed up, and even if the game is started, you can still get involved. So check out that section for more information. Also, just a reminder, starting February 2nd, it is the annual 3017 A Puck of Williams. Now, for those of you folks that don't know what a 3017 is, at some point, somebody said that they had enough soaps that would last them till the year 3017. So that was adopted as you use the same soap until it's gone. So what is the Williams 3017? Well, basically what it is you take a puck of Williams, you grate it up, you add your favorite aftershave or eau de toilette, let that go ahead and ferment a little bit, harden up, and now you have a soap. So from the entire month of February or until it's gone, you can use a puck of Williams with your favorite scent and have fun with some of the guys over in the Shave Soap Forum. Now, as an addition to that, Chad has been running some themes for the month. Currently, it is expensive soap theme week right now. Well, he is going to suspend that for February to allow for the 3017 Williams Challenge. So that's our news and events from badgerandblade.com for this week. And when we get back, we'll have our interview with Antique Hoosier as part of our member spotlight. Be back in just a bit.
A new cologne for men from Prince Machiavelli.
Welcome back to Badger and Blade, everybody, and we're very excited to have our first member spotlight interview with Antique Hoosier. You guys may know him as Mike on Badger and Blade. How are you doing this evening, Mike?
Doing great, Dave. Thanks.
Well, we know that you've been a member since 2006, and I remember either you and I conversing, or I read it somewhere that you were kind of the second wave of members for Badger and Blade. And with that being said, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became involved in traditional shaving, and some of the changes and some of the evolution that you've seen in Badger and Blade in, the last 10 years.
So, Dave, I'm a licensed auctioneer and estate appraiser, so I find myself around a lot of interesting things from time to time. And I kind of stumbled across Badger and Blade, actually, through finding an object that I had interest in. At the end of one of my auctions, we decided that some of the items that didn't sell, and believe you me, there's some items in an auction that won't even bring $1. On the client's behalf, we typically take those to a Salvation Army or a hospice or some type of a thrift store on behalf of the client to get them a tax credit. And we were doing that, and I believe I went to a Salvation Army in the Midwest, and we'd done our deed for our customer, and I was kind of lingering around the front talking to some of the people at the front, and I looked in the display case, and I saw just this beautiful object, which turned out to be a late 60s slim adjustable, the gold version, in the long, slender case with all of the paperwork, the blade box, everything. I think it was like, Grandpa got it, Dad got it, and Uncle got it, and put it in a sock drawer, and it was just too nice to ever use. So it was just this mint piece, and I just always, in the business, we call those smalls, and I love smalls. And I thought, hey, how much is that? And they said, it's $5. And I said, wow, that's kind of a neat little item. I'll take that. And I gave them $5. And I went back to my home, and I got on my desktop computer back in the time and started doing some research on it, and I stumbled across Badger and Blade, anything to do with safety razors. And even then, back in late 2006, Badger and Blade was one of the first references that came up. And so I did my research on it and did some reading, and basically after that, I got hooked. I didn't use that razor. I actually sold it, and I sold it, I think, for about $130 to a guy in Australia on one of the online selling sites. Well, that intrigued me quite a bit for that type of return on investment. But after that, I started looking for them. I thought, well, heck, this makes some lunch money here from time to time if I happen to be in an antique store or thrift store. And believe it or not, back then, Dave, I used to find, now not cased examples like that, but I'd find a stray Fat Boy or a Super Speed or this, that, and the other, and for $1 or $2 or $3. This was early enough, Dave, where people weren't cleaning out antique stores. Like they're pretty well cleaned out now. Or the antique store owner has a pretty general idea what things are worth now. Well, I started thinking, well, this is kind of crazy. Maybe I should use one of these things. And I did. And then I spent more and more time on Badger and Blade. And 250 safety razors later, I decided that I was pretty much hooked. So I got involved, and it just became more of a lifestyle than anything. We were all kind of enabling each other back in those days. And I came along about almost a year and a half after the forum began. But it was still early days. It was just a little club. And there were some very influential people in the club, and yet I remember seeing posts of, here's 18 new members that have joined. Back in those days, it was, and we celebrated birthdays, and we, 1,000 posts was huge back then. There was very few people that had even accomplished that.
Sure.
That was kind of before the days of the speed posters, and we kind of went through that back in the day too, where people just kind of came in. I mean, I was looking at some of the figures earlier today, and approaching 500,000 threads started on the site, approaching 9 million posts. That's pretty incredible, and kind of a testament. Now, of course, now a lot of those are plus ones, and,
sure,
but a lot of them are welcome to Badger and Blade.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that speaks a lot for the community. It's just always been a welcoming place. It has evolved and changed a bit, but the basics of the forum have not changed, and it's unlike any other online hobby site that I've ever stumbled across because of the nature of the community. The community is just outstanding.
Well, and you brought up a really good point because, obviously I've been on the site since late 2013, 2014, and that I had been a moderator on a motorcycle forum before, and it was, it was like the wild, wild west. And if anybody asked a question, and we've touched on this on previous shows, you immediately had to take cover with Kevlar because you were going to get flamed. And that's the one thing that I noticed right off the bat with Badger and Blade is there was none of that. And I imagine it must be amazing for you to sit there and say, and it was funny, I almost got goosebumps when you said it, 1,000 posts or 80 members. When you look at it now, and I think we're bridging 77,000 members now. And so it's got to be really kind of neat for you to watch how the evolution has gone from, because didn't Badger and Blade start out more or less as a Reddit style of forum before it moved into the generation it is now?
When I first got started, it was always the BB type forum structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's had a couple, 3 different skins, so to speak.
Sure.
But it resembled something very, very old school and very rudimentary. You would see the same 50 people basically a lot. So there were some newcomers, but you saw those influential people. The shaving forums in general started from more of a message board type site, the Wet Shavers group, and then that spun off into a forum that is still in existence. And then Badger and Blade was beget from that forum, and the small group of pioneers that started it that I still consider cyber friends, many of them, and many of them are still very active, and that's fantastic. If it hadn't have held my attention, if it hadn't have been so welcoming, I probably wouldn't have been on a decade. But I will say this, it's definitely not a Google is your friend type response
Sure.
that you get in so many other forums, or where one smart aleck posts hyperlinks to the 16 times that same question has been asked.
Sure.
And kind of throws water on the whole thing. I love the fact that guys, and it's primarily gentlemen, but there's ladies as well, but that the members continue to ask those questions that have been asked a million times before, but people still are welcoming and answer and contribute. And I want to speak about that real quickly,
Sure.
because that's one thing that early on we didn't have contributors, and we didn't, basically Joel and some of the founders technically operated and owned and ran the forum, but
Sure.
There was a few years into it that there was a request if you chose to be a financial contributor, and I've honestly done that on and off.
Sure.
I've not been a consistent dollar contributor, but here's the thing. I always have felt that the best contribution that a member can make is actually participating in the forum.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think we just owe it as members to encourage new people, enable the new people, and really try to be a welcoming group. And boy, I think we can pat ourselves on the back and say we've all done that, and we continue to do that. So that's the contribution I think people should make.
Well, it's so funny that you say that, because I think it was a couple months back I had this crazy idea, because I had always joked about, because obviously being a steward, we're kind of the court jesters of Badger and Blade, and we try to help out the new members as much as we can, and try to keep content moving and stuff, which we really don't need to do. I mean, there's so much content on the site as it is, because I remember when I first got involved, it was almost overwhelming, and thankfully there was guys out there that would take your hand and say, okay, come here, young Jedi, we will we'll walk you along the path. And what I really realized is what we are tour guides for this hobby, and more importantly, we like to push people into holes. We hear the term rabbit holes all the time, and when I joined the site, I had been traditional shaving for quite some time. I had broken away from DE razors for a long time, did the whole cart electric goo and all that other stuff. And then when I got back into it, I had no idea, because I went out and bought a Vanderhagen, Waishi clone, figuring that was all that was out there. And then all of a sudden, boom, and the next thing you know, my wife finds her father's old Fat Boy, and all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I blink my eyes one morning, I get up and I've got 35 razors sitting in the thing. And then about 2.5, 3 years ago, I ventured into the straight razor forum, and now some 60 straight razors later, I get dirty looks from my DEs almost every day now, because they're like, hey, what happened to us? But what amazes me about this is not only are we helping people jump into those rabbit holes, but we're assisting them in doing it. And the point I was getting to is we started a club in the journal section called the CEC, which is the Central Enablement Center. And so literally we almost have a corporate structure of how we're going to enable all these people. And of course, it's all in fun. And I was feeling a little bit guilty in the beginning, because I was like, gosh, am I taking a guy who doesn't make a lot of money, and he's spending the money he would spend on food, on razors and shaving soap. But and that's what, to me, and I don't know if you feel the same way, obviously with the longevity and the tenure that you have on Badger and Blade, but I've got friends on Badger and Blade that I've never laid an eye on. I've never shaken their hand, but yet I feel closer to some of these people than I feel to the people that I sit and look at on a day-to-day basis, because there's a decorum that exists here that I've never seen in any other internet site. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. We do have our cyber friends that become real friends that you end up endlessly private messaging
Sure.
or supporting, so to speak. And I'll tell you, or playing little jokes on or whatever. But it's one thing about the enabling. You are right. It can put a hurting on a checkbook. That's for sure.
Oh,
the
yeah.
hobby can. I'll tell you. It's similar to Corey Greenberg, who used to run a site called the Shave Blog. Did a morning segment on the Today Show that really kind of really boosted things along with Lester Holt, and he went on there and it was showing the shaving brushes and Trumper soaps and the DE, the Merkers. And when I started, there wasn't a whole lot of artisans. The artisans were the three Sues: Honeybee Sue, Mama Bear Sue, and Sue Mohr.
Yep, exactly.
And and Charles at QED. Those are basically your artisans. Someone started a thread the other day, Dave, that said, "What is it with these Gillettes? What's the attraction?" Guys, that's the only thing we had when we first started.
Sure.
And that's why I pretty much accumulated a bunch of those. And
sure.
They're fantastic, but yes, as Corey Greenberg said, I finally graduated to, which I never thought I would, the king of shaving, which was the straight razor. And that
absolutely
really catapulted my kind of my participation in the forum even more to a higher level. And since this time 10 years ago or 9 years ago, over 800 straight razors have passed through my den.
Wow.
But as you probably know from the few times that I post what straight razor I shave with, or a shave of the day
Sure.
photograph, it's pretty much almost always the same straight razor.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much use the same straight razor every day, and I kind of beat that acquisition disorder on a lot of things. I pretty much have settled into where I like to be, but you know what? I would never ever change that obscene discovery phase that I had. And I love that about the forum. I love reading posts, and I read a lot.
Sure.
I don't post as much as I used to. I have 10,000 posts in 10 years. It's not an incredible amount.
Sure.
I mean, it's participation, but it's in the top 200 or 300 probably. But the thing is, I wasn't really going after posts. What I love is I read a lot, and now what I find is I feel like that I want to do is pretty much encourage people.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I never thought I would ever pick up a straight razor, but there's something very romantic and very magical about the straight razor.
Sure.
And well, I think we see more and more. It's predominantly a double-edged razor form.
Sure.
But, gosh, look at the growth in all of these artisan razors and brushes and people that are still members of forums that have started companies. I mean, John, letter K, used to sell a little blade sampler. He didn't have West Coast Shaving. It became West Coast Shaving.
Sure.
Phil Hutzinger, a cyber friend of mine.
From Bull Goose, right?
Was just a regular poster, started a very successful... Now, you know, I even thought about that, but I stay pretty busy in my field, but I couldn't pull it off like they did. I just had it as a love and as a passion rather than as a business. I could have probably very easily
with what you do,
continued to buy and sell, but you know, I just enjoy. There's nothing like that 15 minutes if it's all I have, or as much as an hour a day, where I'm taking my time and that's my time and enjoying it, and it's aromatherapy.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably one of the best analogies that I've heard, that it's aromatherapy for the soul.
It really is.
Well, you know, what's funny is when I first joined, you know, my wife, Sharon, who's been on the show, in fact, she is remarkably very close to Mrs. Santa Claus. For those that she thought it was nuts, you know, because I had, well, in general, what it's happened now is I got kicked out of our master bathroom, and now I've got my own, I call it my shave closet because it's our guest bathroom. But I look back and I say, okay, I had Brute, I had, Old Spice, and now I look at, because as far as jumping in the rabbit holes, what I did is I just got an end loader, and rather than having 16 different rabbit holes, I just dug out one big hole and just jumped right in with everything. But I'm getting to that point too, in a way, is that I've got the favorites that I always go to, almost on a consistent basis. And what amazes me is especially in the journal section, when you see a brand new straight razor shaver and he completes the first 5, then the first 10, then the first 50, then the first 100, and watching that evolution. And who would have ever thought that shaving would bring out the pride of saying, hey, I shave with this cold piece of steel and I'm getting better at it every day. And same, and even same on the DE side. And then of course you got the DE side, you've got the SE side, you've got the old gems, you've got everything, which I'm sure in your business you see. But you mentioned something earlier I wanted to bring up, is that, I remember when I first got into it, and then when I got into straights, I'd go to the various antique stores. Now, Tucson, doesn't have a ton of them, but they do have them. And I figured, okay, well, Arizona is like Florida, is very big for the retirement community. So a lot of the people coming out here probably were involved in traditional, whether it be straight or DE shaving. I'm gonna cash in, and it never fails. Even to this day, I'll walk into one of the antique stores or a pawn shop or anything else, and I'll ask about shaving gear. Not necessarily to buy anything, but just to see what they have. And inevitably, it's always like, oh yeah, there was a guy in here yesterday, he bought everything.
Absolutely.
Whereas, before, and you said something too, is the people that own the antique stores are getting, a light bulb went off in their head, and they went, because
the whole male grooming, area of the world has just expanded so much. And so I will tell you, I've been in the antique business as well for over 30 years, and they're a little slow on the uptake. They hate online, believe it or not. They'd love for you just to come in their shop, because back in the old days, if you were a collector, that was part of the fun, is you would go from one brick and mortar to another and look in all the little nooks and crannies and but now you just click on your computer and you can find things, and that's caused certain items to go down in value, but obviously shaving related. I always go in, anytime I go in, and I don't very often, where I find things now is I've met over the course of the years as a collector. Never really was a collector. I was always wanted to be a minimalist, and I'm kind of getting there, but I have met some of the greatest straight razor collectors in the United States. I've traveled all over the United States, and I've purchased some things from their collections. But if I go into an antique store, I just say, because they always invariably ask you, is there anything you're looking for in particular? And I always tell them, I like barbershop things, because there's a lot of things that you might want to look for that might not just be razors. But they invariably show you the butterscotch handled 1940 chic, it's $45 because the Bakelite guy thinks it's worth a lot of money. But there's still some stuff out there. I will tell you, guys, different parts of your country, go to your knife shows, your regional, state, and national knife shows. Knives are much more expensive than straight razors, especially the customs, but the straight razor is the red-headed stepchild of the knife world, and invariably they will pull out from underneath their trade show table a roll of straight razors, and you'll buy them for next to nothing. And that's a good place to try. Now, one other thing I like to say, though, about shaving, keep it in the forum. I will tell you this as advice, because, and maybe you've come across this, we have this extreme passion for it. We have this extreme love. And now, if a coworker finds out that you do this, they might be intrigued for 90 seconds. But our passion is so deep that we'll either put them to sleep or their eyes will glaze over, or you'll be a marked man from that point forward. Best that we keep it amongst us, to be honest with you, because a lot of people try to convince relatives and coworkers, and it always ends badly for me. So it's my little secret with my cyber friends. Well,
it's so funny, and the reason why I'm laughing, I'm tearing up right now, because the type of obviously I own my own business, and I did that. I have a client come in, and we're talking about stuff, and all of a sudden I go off on this rant, and the point you've gone past the no return, because you look at them and they literally have the deer in the headlights look, and in the very back of their mind there's a little tiny man sitting there going, you need to run away from this guy, he's insane.
But on the flip side of that is, prior to joining Badger and Blade, prior to finding that aristocrat that unlocked the key for me, or unlocked the door, I hated shaving. I would buy the 12-pack of the teal turquoise two-blade chic clones and edge gel, and I would begrudgingly every 2 or 3 days in one pass strip it off to not even close to a darn fine shave. But I would do it until those people, and they almost have to find it on their own. I pointed people in the direction of our forum. And that's about it, because you are right. It's not I love the fact that there are thousands of gentlemen primarily, but ladies and gentlemen worldwide, that share what I share. And honestly, like you say, you develop friendships, and guys, not too many at a time, but PM me if you're going to be in Florida, you're going to be in the mountains of North Carolina where my summer home is, let me know, and we'll definitely grab a beer. And if you need a place to lay down after a couple of beers, we'll probably work that out too. And I have to say, Dave, that there's places all around the globe that I feel like that I could send a private message to somebody and say, I'm coming to your area. And I really feel like that I would get that in return.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because my wife and I were just talking about it. And, of course, our next interview coming up on our next show is going to be Marco. And I've got to know Marco pretty well, and Antoine and Arne in Sweden. And every single one of them has been like, hey, if you're over here. So my wife came around the corner one day while I'm sitting there on the computer, of course, on Badger and Blade. And she was kind of just watching things. And then she goes, so what you're saying is we have a tour guide, or at least somebody to sit down and have a cup of coffee or a tea or a beer or a scotch pretty much in every country in the world. And I said, yeah, that's kind of spooky, isn't it? And, and there's a couple of us that are planning on, meeting up in Vegas sometime next year. And it's so odd to see this type of, because we see all the bad stuff that goes on in the world, and really, to me, and this is going to sound overdramatic, but Badger and Blade is almost an oasis of the hope of humanity in a way. I know that sounds really dramatic, but when you see what people are willing to offer, when Don had his situation happen down in Louisiana, with the flooding and everything else, I mean, I just sat back and watched the pouring in of anything he needed to help him through, and this is on a forum where nobody really even physically knows each other. It is
odd, but it's so true. I mean, I'm just gonna, now that you mentioned that, I'm gonna go back to my computer after we're done with this interview and send a private message to Jay Ouch and tell him that I do need a personal tour of Pasteur's Pharmacy with him.
Well, make sure he takes you out for a nice steak dinner while you're at it too. I mean that.
Oh, I would be willing to pay for that, unless it's Smith and Walensky or something really high dollar. But.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, the thing is, not only are people gentlemanly on this forum and ladylike, I guess I should say that as well, but when we do banter against each other, everybody knows that nothing is meant in harm. It's always meant in jest. And what's so funny is you can get away with making jokes to some of the people on the forum, and they make it right back, and it brings that, for lack of a better term, that family together. And you had mentioned earlier about talking about trying to recruit all these new people, and it can sometimes backfire on it. But on the flip side, I had a client. In fact, my very first straight razor, what started it is she came in, and we had talked about. We had talked about shaving, and she's an elderly lady, and she says, I had this stuff that I got in an estate sale, 40 years ago. When you want to take a look at it? And of course, I didn't know much. Sure, bring it on in. And of course, she opens it up, and here's a Joseph Elliott that we finally ended up finding dating to 1865. It was a mess, and a couple of other things. And I said, yeah, I'll take it. And it's funny, and it's my ugliest razor. It's my oldest razor. But I'll tell you what, every time I pick it up, I think, my God, whose face over the last couple of 100 years did this razor
How many
shape?
lives did that shape?
Exactly.
I mean, there's no doubt about it.
And
I feel the exact, I think of that. I think it's much like the famous watchmaker, Patek Philippe says, you never really own a Patek Philippe. You're simply the custodian for it for the next generation. And I really feel like that's what we have in our hands. We have living history that we use. It's pretty amazing.
Sure.
You don't know what dastardly things or wonderful things. They just sing to you. And that's really the truth is objects, and I'm around old objects all the time.
Sure.
People say, that's creepy. But I'll tell you, it's not, because they do sing to you. They do talk to you. And after 800 straight razors, trust me, I've had a few
few conversations
meanly to me.
Sure.
But that's the historical nature of it is pretty amazing. I think that's really what I think we've seen an uptick recently in guys that want to dive into straights.
Sure.
And I just hope that people like yourself and myself and the other people that are active in the straight razor forum will continue to help bring those people along, because it's so well worth it if you if you stick with it.
Oh,
you
it
have
is.
to stick with it.
Well,
it's an
and
art and it's a practice.
Well, and the thing is, when you say that to me, I was like you. You get up, okay, I got to look good for my clients. All right, I'll shave. Now it's a ritual. I mean, to me, it's my Zen time. It's my spa time. And I probably take longer. I mean, I am a BBS chaser. I'm the first one to admit that. And, so for me, 45 minutes to an hour is allocated every morning. And I don't let anything... If I'm late for work, now granted, I own my own business, but if I'm late, I'm late because that's my time to start my day, to get myself feeling the way I want to feel. And, and I look back on that and almost like I have two selves, and one self is going, really? Really? But my wife...
it may end up being the best part of your day, unfortunately, sometimes. I mean, it can be that way.
Yeah.
And I was that way. I was a little bit pampering at one point. I'm kind of more towards the Joel one pass with a 5/8 singing razor is good for me.
Sure.
But if you notice that I posted that recently when somebody was looking for a tutorial on shaving, because I think it's one of the better ones because it doesn't scrimp, because he uses a beautiful Simpson brush. He uses the Mitchell's wool fat. He puts some Alt Innsbruck on.
Sure.
So he has all of the trappings of the luxury. It's just that he does it in less than 15 minutes.
Right.
So there's ways to do this. And I'll be honest with you, for the first 7 years, Dave, I don't think I missed a single day shaving.
Right.
The past, it's horrible to say, I didn't shave today. But now, sometimes, I'll go 2 or 3 days, and I'll tell you what, though, after I've gone 2 or 3 days, that shave is fantastic with a straight razor.
Oh, it's like angels. It's like angels singing to you.
So it really gives you but I could shave every day.
Sure.
There's no doubt about it. But I just didn't today. I thought that was kind of weird. We're having this today, and I thought you'd say, "So, what was your shave today?"
No.
It really was splash a little Brute on, and 1 spritz of Penhaligon's rackets, and I'm out the door.
Well, it's funny. You mentioned watches. Now we're not going to go into that discussion because I know for a fact my wife will come around. The thing with a bat, because watches was my very first real big AD, and some 350 watches later of all different types. Yeah, and some of them are a house payment, mortgage type. But I got to that point like you are now with shaving, is that I have 2 or 3 that I wear all the time, and then of course if there's a special occasion, I'll wear those. But I'm not even going to go in that because that's a whole nother discussion.
Hey, let's be thankful that our main interest is traditional wet shaving, because honestly, where else can you, and really, to get that aromatherapy and to get that tactile sensation, if you gave me a no-date super speed, just a blase, it could be all blemished up as long as it holds a feather blade, and you gave me even a Vanderhagen drugstore brush, and even a puck of Williams mug soap and some Old Spice Brood or Skin Bracer, I literally will have a experience that is unlike what I used to have. Sure. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. Unfortunately, I kind of gravitated towards some of the more expensive items, but I feel like you only live once.
Right.
And if I'm going to I don't ask for a lot in this life, but what I do ask for should be of the highest quality. You could get that same feeling. In a 56 Bel Air convertible, driving down the road, driving with the top down by the beach. Right. But that's $50,000. That's not $50.
Exactly. Well, and the thing is, unfortunately with me, I had a tendency when I first started to gravitate to people like you, Murray, Ceramento One, and he's the one who turned me on to Penhaligons. Boy, was that a mistake, because I'm a fully admitted Penhaligons freak, and when they discontinued English Fern, I mean, it was like a friend died, so now I've been experimenting. I don't know if you knew this, but I created, myself and Chris Lindsay created the Tobacco Veg, to where we took lilac vegetal and mixed it with tobacco, and actually it turned out wonderfully. Now, not everybody likes it, but it turned out great. So now I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to, because I'm so sparing on my puck of English fern. I mean, I use it, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it. And then I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to make the most expensive puck of Williams soap ever. So I bought an extra bottle of English fern, and I made, well, I guess we could call it Green Willy, because it's and you know what? It's not that bad. But that's called desperation. You know, when you love a soap so much that you're willing to concoct anything you can to make
mimic it
exactly.
In any way, yeah.
But you know, now do you have, as we move forward, do you have a favorite? You know, we talked about how you've kind of minimalized things, but do you have, if you were to pick a favorite set of gear, you know, and that would be the razor, the soap, the aftershave, you know, for what you would call the perfect shave. Do you have a favorite gear, and how has that changed over the years for you?
Wow, it's really changed a lot. You know, right now, I secretly, I was almost going to post this, and then I thought, well, it'll be another thread killer. I'm a real thread killer, you know. Even though I've posted a lot, and without patting myself on the back, I try to feel like that I'm kind of an old guard and somewhat influential in some ways.
Absolutely.
But I'm the biggest thread killer in the world, I'll tell you. So, but I've got to the point where I think that Thader brushes are the greatest brushes, but I don't own a Thader. I've owned them in the past. I don't have it.
Sure.
I'm more of a historian, so I have currently, and I bought it recently, and I got it for a song. It's one of those things on eBay, but I think 1 million people were watching, and then either were talking to their wife or having dinner or watching a football game or whatever. So I picked up a Somerset era lamp black Persian Jar 2 in Super.
Wow.
For like $85.
Wow.
And I have been using that every day when I shave, and I don't skip that much, but
sure.
I've been using that. I love Simpsons. I've had probably 45, 50 different ones. And my first experience actually with a legitimate shaving brush was a Chubby One, a pre-owned Chubby One in Best. And the minute I put that to my face, I said to myself, what have I been missing? Because my first shave setups were laughable. People did actually laughed at me on the forum. But no, so I've gravitated towards that. The Helga Strand Swedish razor is basically one of my signatures. Got turned on to one of those years ago through a want to buy. I've never failed on a want to buy. And I'm known as the shark on Badger and Blade. And that comes from back in the old days, the BST was quite the Wild West.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah.
I was pretty famous for sniping things, you know, seconds after they just refresh. I want that. I want that. But I've always loved Simpson because of the history. So I used that. The Helga Strand, I came from a want to buy from a wonderful member who got to the point where he just, at his age, could not use the straight razors to full effect.
Sure. And
so I've always loved that brand. My Kaneyama strop, I'm a Tony Miller guy originally, and I still have my original Tony Miller strop. I love Tony. He's such an asset to our community.
Absolutely.
But I have my Kaneyama strop that I ordered with much fanfare 3 years ago, and I've used every day pretty much since. Probably, believe it or not, lately I've been using the Martin de Condra Fougere soap, which I love as well. And of course, they had to do the vetiver and the rose, and I don't need to be buying anything. I would go with Floris JF Aftershave Splash. I'm one of the few people that uses that. I love it. And I buy that typically 3 bottles at a time, as I do Penhaligons when I find it a good deal. And lately, I'm either a Rackets Penhaligons, which is a discontinued item, which I didn't think I'd ever like, but I love it, or Blenheim Bouquet, which is
just the classic
standard.
Right.
So really, that's it. It's all very snobby, upscale, obtainable, but yet the brands that a lot of the guys really respect and like for the most part, and know that they are the standards. I mean, I've always stuck with the classics.
Sure.
The older members than myself, the 2005 crew, there were a few of them, like Jim, Mr. B&B. He always uses, he's one of the most elegant guys on the forum.
Absolutely.
I used to lust after his sterling silver Simpson's chubby brush, and he's always had wonderful things. And of course, Joel had some of the most wonderful things. So those were the guys that I looked up to, and just I said, I kind of want to. It must be good if they like it. So I've kind of fallen into that. So that's really it. It's kind of like that last meal that they used to give criminals, and they'd pick a cheeseburger. But I'm more along the lines of what I just mentioned.
Sure.
I need that really not, and really all of those items give me that weird sense of that aromatherapy. Now, we'll tell you, I did see a bottle. I was in Seattle on vacation once, and I went into a little pharmacy, and I saw a lilac Vagitel display, and I came so close to buying, but I didn't. So.
Well, you know what's funny? Excuse me. And I don't know what it was, but I gravitated to those same type of people, much to the chagrin of my lovely wife. She goes, "Why couldn't you find a guy that liked Aqua Velva? Where you can, buy a gallon of it for $10." But and somehow, I don't know, and I think it was Phil that turned me on to, and I can never say it, I call it SV, but Saponificio Veracino, and I've gravitated towards that. Now, of course, I've got their whole line. I just bought their limited edition razor, and, but...
I've noticed that's the prominent in your posting.
It really is, and the Florist I've looked at from afar, because I also know that Florist does a thing where you can go over to London, and they will make your signature scent. And of course, every time I start thinking about it, my wife shows up somewhere, and she goes, "We're not going to London just so you can get some juice," But
the bespoke. Fragrance.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll tell you, the JF I love is a splash. It's very citrusy. It's got some healing properties in it, and I think I had a girlfriend once told me she really liked it, so it stuck with me there.
Sure.
And I do like the Santal, both the EDT, and I like the aftershave balm. It's a non-alcoholic balm. It's expensive.
Sure.
I use it and enjoy it as well. So, but it's kind of hard to beat those classics. I mean, there's a reason why they're expensive, and there's a reason why the people that I found to be influential were using them, and boy, they were right.
Well, and I'm that way with a lot of the Creed products too. Obviously, if I buy one Creed product a year, because it'll last a long time. That's the other thing that we haven't talked about is, a lot of people may listen to this interview and say, well, here's a bunch of snobs that that won't blink an eye spending $350, $400 on something. But that's not it, because to me, being in the financial industry and what I do, I'm also looking at this little small bottle of Creed I bought 3 years ago is barely even, it's hardly moving. And so I look at it as, the amortization going forward. But I'm also, caught in that weird thing where I remember what my dad smelled like, and my dad was a brute 100% of the time, and also the original Royal Bay rum. And so I can go from, the Creed Aventus or the Penhaligons right back to Aqua Velva, and that's to me that's the beauty. Exactly.
I wore Brute this morning, and I went to get my hair cut the other day, and the guy did a lather neck shave, but with like a shavette. And,
sure.
But then he took this gallon jug of Master's Bay rum out.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you know what? That stuff smelled pretty darn good.
Well, exactly, so, and that to me is the beauty. And then of course you add in the artisans that are doing not only the soaps now, but they're starting to mess around in the aftershaves, and then even some of them are going. In fact, I think it was Josh from Imaginary Authors who was a moderator on our site that started his own fragrance company. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's the neat thing.
Josh is an old cyber friend of mine.
Yeah.
I wish I would see him more often. It's one thing I wanted to mention. Hopefully, there'll be some guys from back before and around when I started, that 2005 to 2007, 8, that second wave.
Sure.
Guys, come back to Badger and Blade. I know you're lurking out there. Come back and say hello from time to time, because you're also what helped make the forum so great.
Oh, absolutely. Now, and this is kind of a subjective question, but, being around as long as you've had and seeing the evolution of the website and seeing the evolution of, who would have thought that, you'd be on an interview on an internet forum for a radio show about shaving. If you were to ask Nielsen about that, they would say, okay, this is going to get canceled faster than any sitcom in history.
Yeah, I don't see a Netflix opportunity for
Right. But what's amazing, though, is the popularity of this and the responses we had is great, because, we're evolving this into more and more each and every year. And interviews like this, I think, are what's important, because we were already close as a community. But what's neat is, you're going to have new members that are going to hear this interview, and even, older members that are going to reminisce about some of the things you said. And then, kind of the mid-level newer guys like us that can say, wow, this is the evolution of where this has come from. And in a way, and this is going to sound goofy, but in a way, just like we give a nod to our older veterans, we have to give a nod to our older members, whether they're as active as you are or whether they're not as active, because they're the ones that kind of blaze the trail for the rest of us just to come in and hand them our wallets and say, take what you want and just give me stuff, And so what advice would you give brand new forum members? Because I know a lot of them, will come in and they'll see so much stuff and they'll see a lot of money being dropped.
Overwhelming.
What would you give, advice to a brand new forum member?
The advice I would give them is just dive in and participate. Ask as many questions as you need. Private message people, because a lot of times I'll have more time to address a private message than maybe to make a post on a thread. And I never fail to try, especially if it's somebody new that says, hey, I saw your picture and where did you get this, or how did you do this, or whatever. I think that I'm open as a book to help, and we all should, regardless of whether you've been on. One thing I love is there's when the newbie forums and they're introducing themselves, and then here's a guy that just joined 6 weeks ago. It's welcome to Badger.
Exactly.
And I love that, because it's like, hey, guess what? They own it. And they already feel it. So they are really doing what I would recommend is just encourage others, be there for people, have fun with each other, and just dive in and experience it, because it's been it becomes a lifestyle. Sure. Rather than just something you pick up. Now, some guys will very few though, Dave, very few people. How many of you met on the forum that were on for 90 days and boop, they found their perfect setup, they're ready to go, they're done, and they click off and we never hear from them again? Might happen, but very rarely.
I don't think, yeah.
There's an evolution, because there's something for everybody. If you get into pipe smoking, or you get into the mess hall, or you get into physical fitness, or whatever, there's something on this forum. It used to be a shaving forum. Sure. And now it's kind of a lifestyle forum. And so that's what's fantastic. But I just, I hope people will reach out if they listen to this and they have any questions some people are shy. I'm a pretty shy person myself. And
as an auctioneer, really?
Believe it or not. But if they feel like that it's best, if they want to private message me or you or anybody and ask that question, just ask that question, because there's going to be several thousand guys just like you and me that are be more than happy to spend a few moments with those people and work them through certain things. And you know what? It's all a unique individual experience. But yet, when you know that there's other people that have gone through it, it really is a lot more comforting.
Well, and the thing is, it's funny, and I think everybody goes through this little evolution. When I first joined, of course, I lurked for a couple of days, because I didn't know anybody. And then, of course, with my previous forum experience, say, okay, I need to ask this question, but let me get my Kevlar suit on first because I'm going to get hammered. And then when that didn't happen, then for a while, though, I even was kind of secretive about, getting on the forum late at night because, even if I did it at my office, because I was afraid one of my employees would look and say, you're on a shaving website. But now I'm the exact opposite. Now I've got the pom-poms and, I'm shaking the pom-poms saying, hey, it's not only shaving, it's there. You can find pretty much any type of pursuit that you like. You will probably find, and to me, it's been an education. I mean, I didn't know that much about Scotch. Now I'm learning more. I wasn't into pipes. Thank you, Price. Now I'm into pipes, and same with the straight razors and all this other stuff. And it's. I think what this website does is it expands the horizons of what you can learn about gentlemanly pursuits or ladies obviously we have on the site, but just it's like you said, I think lifestyle is the key word there. Any final thoughts? I've got to tell you, Mike, this has been a complete honor for me, and it's been just an amazing trip down memory lane and listening to what it was like back in the early days. But any final thoughts and anything you would like to say to the listeners, both on our YouTube video page and also on our podcast?
I guess I would say, Dave, that it's been my pleasure to be a part of the group because I've learned so much. I learn something every day from even new people. They have an approach, and it's just there's so much to learn. Just read and read and read. Don't be afraid to ask a question, and then dive in. And if you need any help, ask anybody on the site. And if they've been there a month longer than you, they may know a couple of things, or you might actually be able to lend something that will help them. But it's been a pleasure, and I'll continue to be active. But my role now, I feel like I'm out of that discovery phase. That's the most beautiful phase, when you're first discovering this traditional wet shaving practice, this art. It's awesome. And the discovery phase is the best. And hopefully you don't have huge credit card bills and an empty wallet when you're done.
Exactly.
Because it's very possible. But no, it's been fun, and it's going to continue to be fun. And what I'm hoping, I was telling you, I bought my Penhaligans in batches, and I bought enough to last probably 10 years. So 10 years from now, when we're having this 20th anniversary discussion, I'll let you know that I spritzed the last of my Blenheim bouquet today.
Exactly. Well, Mike, once again, we appreciate you taking time out of your evening, especially, when this is being recorded. It's pretty late night for you. But I think the members of Badger and Blade, as well as, some of the older guys, are really going to get a kick out of this interview.
I'm calling them out, Dave.
Absolutely.
Come on back.
And so we really appreciate you taking this time to be with us, Mike, and we hope you have an absolutely wonderful rest of the week and weekend as well.
Thanks so much, Dave.
Well, that brings this episode to a close, and we'd certainly like to thank you for your support and listenership of Badger and Blade Radio, and hope that you enjoyed this episode as well. We'd like to thank the moderators and stewards for all the hard work they do each and every day. Please understand that these are volunteer positions, and many of these gents spend countless hours trying to build content, help members, and make this place more enjoyable. Also to the owners and the administrators of BadgerandBlade.com for bringing us this wonderful internet forum that is truly unique among the interwebs. But most importantly, we'd like to thank you, the member. You are the lifeblood of BadgerandBlade.com, and your membership is appreciated each and every day. Some items that we're working on for future shows: more member, vendor, steward, and moderator spotlights, as well as a few surprises coming up in the next couple of months, so please stay tuned for that. I'm your host, Skyside, and join us for our next episode. Have a great week.